Can I speak, Priyanka?
Yes, sir, you can start now.
Yeah. Uh, Hello, everyone. So I welcome you all. I welcome you all to this very important leg of the interview guidance program of Civil Services Achievers Point. As you all know, this interview guidance program has got many aspects, and today's session is a very important session. And today's session will be hosted by none other than Mr. Anil Swarup, sir. So actually, Mr. Anil Swarup sir needs no introduction. He's a very famous personality. Yet I will say a few lines about him for you guys to get a brief idea about the distinguished guest we have with us today. So Mr. Anil Swarup sir is a retired IAS officer of the Uttar Pradesh cadre, and he was from the 1981 batch. In terms of career span, he has a total career span of about 38 years, and he has served as actually he has served in very important positions. For example, he has served as school education and literacy secretary of India from 2016 to 2018. Then he was also the coal secretary of India from 2014 to 16. Apart from these positions, he has also served in various key positions such as additional secretary in the cabinet secretariat of India, additional secretary of labor and empowerment, and export commissioner in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of India. Besides this, in 2015, Mr. Anil Swarup sir was transferred to the Education Ministry. He was transferred to the Education Ministry as and when he refused to give coal produced by Coal India away at a discount to privileged businessmen. So he took a stand for which he was transferred to the Education Ministry. Apart from that, he is also the recipient of Director's Gold Medal for Best Officer Trainee of his batch at the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. Apart from this, Mr. Anil Swarup sir is also a noted author, and he has authored several books, including the famous Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, Not Just a Civil Servant, as well as No More a Civil Servant. So I once again welcome Mr. Anil Swarup sir, who has joined us all the way from Delhi, and I would request him to take over the session. Sir, please.
Thank you very much for those very kind words, and a very good morning to all of you. First of all, my compliments to those that have given the mains exam this year. My compliments also to CSAP for taking this advanced lead in providing guidance for personality tests. Now, I say this because if you start preparing for this personality test now, then whether you qualify or not for the personality test, what I am going to tell you now is going to benefit you. Hopefully, most of you who have given your mains exam will qualify. But if you don't, you will still benefit from what I'm going to tell you right now. So it's very important for you to listen to this very carefully on how to improve your personality, because that's what going to be tested in an interview, whether it is in your state or if later on some of you qualify for UPSC. There also, the key factor in so-called interview is your personality. And I will talk about how to develop that personality for you to impress anyone that you're speaking to. It could be an interview for the examination, for the civil service examination, state civil service examination. But even otherwise, I've often said that if you develop certain skills, certain inherent skills, then you will succeed as a civil servant. If you don't have those inherent skills, you may qualify in an exam, you may become a civil servant either in the central government or in the state government. But to become successful in civil service, you have to have certain skills. So whatever I'm going to tell you today would be around how to develop your personality per se, specifically focused on your personality test. I would also like to inform you that this is just the beginning of my interaction with you all. I shall be associated with CSAP, and I shall be coming down to Guwahati to physically interact with those that actually qualify for personality test. And my idea is not through mock interviews. What I do is go through the details of a person and guide him on how he or she should prepare for for the personality test. So I'd like to repeat and tell you, this is my first session with you all. And I do plan to fly down to Guwahati and stay there for a few days to have extensive and intensive interaction with those that actually qualify. But as I said in the beginning, it is not so material as to whether you qualify or not. You should evolve as a better individual. You should get a better personality so that whether you qualify for the civil service or not, you become a better person and you are able to do well in life. That's very important. May I request the organizers to bring my presentation? I have a small PowerPoint presentation. I will take you through that small PowerPoint presentation and then we will open to question and answer session. So any one of you having a question can raise this question on the chat box in YouTube. And if you do that, you should be able to communicate with me. That question will be read by the organizers, and I will attempt to answer that question. Can I have the full screen, please? Right now we have a part screen here. So, and let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. Priyanka, can you change the slide, please? Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you here is we should look at what is the board looking for. This is very, very important because whether it is dressing or eating, you have to look at the consumer, and here the consumer is the board. Sometimes we are not aware of what the board is looking for, and without that you can't equip yourself. So whenever you go for any job or any work, then you have to look at what are the requirements of that job. What exactly are they going to ask? I have a detailed slide on that. I'll come to that. The second part of this presentation would be how should you prepare for the test. So once you know what the board wants of you, then I'll tell you what you should do in the period from now to the time that you have your personality test. How should you go about preparing yourself? And finally, I will talk about what should you do on the day of the test. That's very important. So first is, what does the board want of you? What is the board looking for? You must understand very clearly, because many of us have a great misunderstanding about what the interview board is looking for, and hence we don't prepare accordingly. So we have to clearly understand what exactly are they looking for. And with my little experience in civil service and guiding people like you, I'll tell you what exactly does the board look for. And on the basis of that, how do you prepare in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or whatever time that you have to prepare for the interview? And finally, what should you do on the day of the interview when you go there? How do you walk in and what you all do? I have a separate slide on that. Can I have the next slide, please? Priyanka, can I have the next slide?
Priyanka?
Priyanka, can I have the next slide, please? Will you have to keep going back to the entire screen, and isn't somebody there to do it? Priyanka, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Switch
Sir,
the
is it
slide
visible?
as quickly as you can. No, when I ask you to switch the slide, is there any
Yes,
technical
sir.
problem in that?
I guess, sir. Sir, give me a minute.
And can I have this slide on the full screen? It is no. Please don't go to the next slide. Go to the previous slide. And can it be on the full screen, please? It is right now on, not on slideshow. Can it go on slideshow? There is a thing here which says slideshow.
Yes,
Go
sir.
down.
Yes, sir.
Go on to the. Okay, since we are unable to get the full slideshow, and in the meanwhile, as I'm talking, Priyanka, please go into the details of how to get a full screen here. No, please go back to the previous. Leave it as it is. And ask somebody else more competent to come here and see how these slides can be brought onto the full screen. Okay, so friends, let me come back to the presentation here. The first point written here that it is not an interview. It is a personality test. Now, what is the difference between interview and a personality test? In an interview, they're asking you questions to elicit information. They're trying to seek information from you in an interview, whether you know. Whereas in personality test, it is much beyond knowledge. They are looking at your overall personality, your conduct, the manner in which you speak, whether you have a positive attitude. So they are looking not so much at knowledge, because knowledge has already been tested in your written exam. So by and large, in a personality test as compared to an interview, they are not testing your knowledge per se. They may still ask certain factual questions, but it is not so much as fact as to the manner in which you answer those questions. And hence, it is important for you to develop an articulation, meaning thereby that how fluent are you in expressing yourself. And I'll tell you how to go about improving your fluency. So you must understand the importance of your capability to express yourself fluently. It's very, very important. Then how logically you speak. One is speaking fluently. You can speak a lot of nonsense fluently. It may not make any sense. But apart from speaking fluently, you should be able to present things logically. Again, in subsequent slides, I'd like to explain to you how do you develop this capability of being fluent as well as logical. What they are also looking at is how reasonable or rational. It's not you make a statement without any logic, and how do you argue it reasonably. And then there has to be coherence, meaning thereby that you can't say one thing and say another thing and then say another thing. There has to be a relationship between what you're talking about and a particular issue. This is all very important. But most importantly, what they are looking at is a positive attitude. This is extremely, extremely important. Because as a civil servant, you will come across many situations where you have to lead the way. Now, in a leadership position, if you're not positive in your attitude, your whole team will collapse. No matter how dismal or difficult are the set of circumstances, if you have a positive attitude, you will attempt to find solutions to the problem. You will look at the positive side of whatever is presented to you. This is probably the most important aspect that the board is looking at, how positive you are. Because many people have this negative attitude. You tell them something, sir, this is the problem. Sir, ye problem hai. Sir, problem to hai. If there were no problems, they don't require civil servants. The fact that there is civil service, there is bureaucracy, is that there are problems. And the bureaucracy or the civil servants have to find solutions to those problems. Now, if you have a negative attitude, you will never find a solution to the problem. If you have a positive attitude, it's like glass being half full or half empty. The objective reality is the same. But someone who has a positive attitude will look at the half full of the glass and then try build on it. And if as a leader, you have a positive attitude, that is infectious. Your team also will build that positive attitude. It's very, very important. So the first part of the slide relates to your attitude, your conduct, your articulation. These are the parts that the board is looking for. They're also looking at how aware you are. So my suggestion to all of you is, and there is a subsequent slide also, is you don't have to study what you have already studied in the main exam. You have to be aware of what is happening around you, say in Assam, what is happening in the country, what is happening in the world. So that awareness levels have to be of a higher scale. Then, of course, you have to understand and you should be able to explain your place of your stay, where you've studied or where you're living, what are the local issues. Because as a civil servant, wherever you go and wherever you are posted, you should be aware of what is happening around you. Because without that level of awareness, you will not be able to see. Bottom line from a civil servant is to find solutions to the problems. And you can't find solutions to the problems if you're not fully conversant or aware of the environment in which those problems exist. Once you understand that awareness level, you should be able to do that. And finally, in the sheet that you give in UPSC, they called detailed application form. I'm sure there must be some other name in Assam where you write about your hobbies. You should be able, you don't have to be an expert in a hobby. You don't have to be an expert, but you should be aware of why you're pursuing something as a hobby. The difference between hobby and other is that hobbies you undertake during your free time. Now, you can't go and tell the board that, sir, I don't have any hobby. I've yet to come across any individual who doesn't have a hobby. He doesn't realize that it is his hobby, but everyone has a hobby because everyone has some free time. Now that your exams are over, there's a lot of free time available to you. What do you do in your free time? And the difference is that hobbies are something which you like. It's not imposed on you. Like, for example, a subject in the exam is imposed on you. You have to take that subject. You can't choose subject outside the selected list of subjects that you have. But hobbies you can choose. You sleeping can be a hobby. Watching TV could be a hobby. Reading could be a hobby. Music could be a hobby. But you should be careful about what you write as a hobby. You should know fundamental things about hobby. Can I have the next slide, please? Now, let's go one by one as to how do you prepare for the test in the long run. Please go back to the previous slide. Okay, this fundamental principle you must understand very clearly, because if you understand this fundamental principle, it will give you a lot of confidence. Now, you are not supposed to know all the solutions to all the problems. If all solutions were known, again, civil service will wither away. It will not be required. What will be seen is, what would be required is, how do you approach a problem? It's not a question of solving a problem. So they may ask you, Bodos are a major problem in Assam. Now, the demand for Bodo land has been there for a long time. You are not supposed to give a solution to a Bodo land problem or problem of Bodos or problem of extremism in Assam. But they will look at you, how do you approach that problem? So what is most important is not the solution itself, but your ability to move towards finding that solution. That's very important. How do you approach? So when I interact with you, we'll take specific issues and explain to you how a positive approach can be taken up. I don't know whether you have an ethics paper. Do you have an ethics paper in civil service?
Yes, sir, we do, sir.
So if you have ethics paper, you would have got some flavor of how do you look at issues positively? How do you attempt to find solutions? How do you move ahead? So that is something which will help you even in your personality test. Next slide, please. Now, the first point here is extremely important, and listen to this very carefully. I say this with all the experience that I have had. I say this with all the experience that I've had with people like you who prepared for the civil service, many of whom today are actually civil servants. They have benefited from what I'm going to tell you right now. As I said in the first few slides, that articulation is very important, as is awareness. So let me talk about articulation. How do you improve your articulation? Now, many of you would have given Assamese as your language for personality test. Many of you would have given English as your personality test. Now, whoever has given Assamese as his personality, as language for personality test, or English, you should start thinking, speaking, writing, doing everything in the language that you've taken for your personality test. I'm repeating it. And it's very important. You have to start thinking, speaking, writing, everything in the language that is there for the personality test. This is extremely critical. You know why? Because those that have taken English as the medium and assuming that your mother tongue is Assamese, what we usually do is we mentally translate from Assamese to English and then speak. And there will be many occasions, I face it even now, when you are unable to find the right word to express the thought that you have in your mind. You have to get into the habit of being able to convert that immediately into a word, because the thought is nothing else except a word that should come to your mind and you should be able to speak. Now, for this, you have to get into a particular drill that I'm going to tell you. How do you become fluent in your articulation? How do you make yourself in a manner that you are able to fluently express what comes in your mind here? Many of us, and I've been interacting with hundreds of people like you, hundreds of aspirants like you, have had problems in fluently expressing. I used to get that. I used to get hung on finding the right word to express my thoughts. And many of us do that. Now, whether it is English or even Assamese. Even in Assamese, I find people, fumbling for finding a particular word. So these are usual problems with everyone. No one is a born speaker. I mean, all of us are born crying, and then we learn to speak. Some become fluent, some don't. Why and how? Because they practice it. Because they are in an environment where everyone speaks fluently. So pick it up there, or they pick it up in their college, or they practice it afterwards and improve. I did that because when I did my class 12, I had physics, chemistry, and maths in class 12. And I took up papers like history, economics, and English literature. My language was pretty bad. I couldn't speak or write 5 sentences properly in English or in Hindi. I'm telling you all this is, all of us have this problem. We may not admit it. But if you go through the drill that I'm going to tell you now, I'm giving all this background just to impress upon you that irrespective of whether you qualify for the civil service or not, if you follow the drill that I'm going to tell you just now, you will stand to benefit. Now, what is that drill? All of you would be reading some newspaper or the other. And here again, I would say, if you have taken Assamese as your language, don't read an English newspaper. Read an Assamese newspaper. And if you've taken English, read an English newspaper, whichever English newspaper, because all of them are pretty good. Now, in that newspaper, open the editorial page. Which is the editorial page? The editorial page is a page, either 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th page, where you have the editorial. Open that page. And then select one of the editorial articles. There are 2-3 articles on the editorial page. Pick up one article. Stand in front of a mirror and read this article aloud. This is extremely critical. Initially, you will fumble. Initially, you would find it stupid. You will not be able to read it fluently. Don't worry about it at all. Everyone goes through that. No one is a born fluent speaker. You have to develop that through a particular practice. And this practice should not be only for 1 day, 2 days. It should be done regularly, every day at a fixed time, and you record what you are reading in front of the mirror. You will find it very funny to begin with. If there are people around you, they might laugh at you. They laughed at me when I did that. Not today, I am laughing. They may not be laughing. You'll have to do that. Read it aloud and record it. Why record it? Because you will see the improvement over a period of time. You will discover that you're becoming more fluent in your speech. The words are coming out fluently, seamlessly, easily. Otherwise, you fumble. Even if you know a word, you are unable to speak that very clearly. You should read it slowly, aloud in front of a mirror and record it. That is step number 1. Do it every day without failure. Step number 2 is even more difficult. And the chances are those that don't understand or appreciate the importance of what I'm telling them are going to drop it on the second day. They will say, what nonsense has Mr. Anil Swarup given? But let me assure you, if you want to succeed, it makes a world of a difference. I'll tell you, in my case, the difference was getting 55% in the interview at UPSC in the first year when I qualified for the police service, and getting the highest in the country, that is 80% in the second year. That's the difference between what I'm telling you just now. If you practice, you'll improve. So first is stand in front of a mirror, pick up one editorial article and read it aloud. That is step 1. After you've done that, put the paper down and speak what you've read in your own words. This will be even more difficult. you will find it very, very difficult to speak out anything because you're not used to it. Now, right now, your job is to speak, express the ideas that come to your mind. If you don't do this, the chances are that the improvement that can come about in your articulation will not come. You can do that. If you do that for 4-5 months, you will see a change immediately. So what you do is read the article, then read it aloud, then put it down and speak it out in your own words and tape it. Why record it? This is the instrument to record it. Almost everyone has it for no. So record it. Why record it again? Because you will see the improvement here. Initially, first of all, you will not understand what you're saying. What you say will not be logical. What you'll say will not be rational. You will be speaking here, there, and everywhere. Don't worry. It happens with everyone. Don't get disheartened by the fact that you are unable to express the thoughts that come to your mind after reading the article fluently. It happens with everyone. So this is a stage 2. Now, I'm also suggesting at stage 3, which may not directly help you in your personality test, but do it. As I said, it is a question of improving your personality. The third stage is after you've read it, after you've spoken it, keep the newspaper down and write down what you've read in your own words. This again is important for you to structure your thoughts. Ultimately, first is reading. Second is comprehension, that is understanding what you read. Third is structuring your thoughts. And fourth is articulating your thoughts, yes, speaking it. So in structuring your thoughts, after having read it and after having spoken, as you speak, you will discover that you are unable to structure your thoughts. So what should come later comes first, what should come first will come later. So in order to overcome that, if you, after having spoken, sit down and write and structure those thoughts, you'll get into the habit of working out structured. Now, right now, after so many years of practice, you give me any topic, my mind will start structuring that in a particular manner, and I should be able to present that idea in a very logical and a rational manner. It doesn't come just like that. It comes through practice. Please do that regularly. Right? I hope I am able to bring this and importance of this aspect clearly. As you read this, you will come across concepts and words which you don't understand. Just take note of them. Go to Google Uncle on this and get the details. Again, you are becoming aware. This comes later on. Okay. Then the second important aspect of improving your articulation is, and that is where I would suggest CSAP should play an important role. The moment results are out, constitute small WhatsApp groups of 5 persons each of those that qualify. WhatsApp group. It's important. And this group will hold a discussion on a pre-decided topic every day. I'm repeating it. Constitute small WhatsApp group of 5 persons each. And when you constitute this group, linguistically, they should be the same. So Assamese group should be together and English should be together. Or if there's Hindi should be together. Don't mix the two languages. It's important. So these 5-person groups, WhatsApp group, will have a discussion on a topic decided every day for the following day. Every group will have a coordinator who will coordinate all this. And for everyday discussion, I am repeating it, there would be a lead speaker. So he'll prepare on that subject and then he'll speak for 10 minutes on that subject. Someone will say, sir, we don't need to speak for 10 minutes in an interview or personality test. No, you need not. But again, as far as structuring of thoughts is concerned, if you can speak for 10 minutes logically, rationally, coherently, then you will be able to speak logically, coherently, and rationally for short duration presentation also. It's a question of getting into that mode. It is also important that when you discuss with others, and I'm very convinced about it, that when you discuss others, you look at certain aspects of an issue which you otherwise may have overlooked. And this discussion will help. People lay a lot of emphasis on mock interviews. I'm not against it. I'm not for too many mock interviews. Mock interview is a test, whereas what I'm telling you is a preparation. To me, preparation is much, much more important than test. Yes, have a mock interview to begin with, to understand what is good and what is not so good with you. But thereafter, don't worry about mock interviews. Focus on preparing yourself. Mock interviews will not help you prepare. Mock interviews will help you assess. It's important. Assess what is good, what is right, what is wrong with you, so that you can correct it. But most important are the preparatory steps that I have told you just now. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, I had mentioned it earlier briefly, but let me point out to you that since there are a number of people who are interviewed or the personality test is taken, the board also doesn't know what to ask. So where do they look at asking you? They look at what you have provided, the details of hobbies, places stay, your education, your profession if you're working somewhere. So anyone who's preparing for the personality test should be fully conversant with the profession that he is in. Suppose you are a lecturer somewhere, or you are in government somewhere in another job and you're taking a new job. You should be able to tell reasonably well about what you're doing at that point in time. So knowledge about your profession, if you are in one, is very important. When I interact with you physically, I will go into the details of individual's profession and tell you what sort of questions could be asked. Then you should know about your place of stay. So if you are staying in Dibrugarh, you should know what Dibrugarh is all about. What are the problems of Dibrugarh? How are the people of Dibrugarh? So how is climate change impacted Dibrugarh? So variety of things of the place that you come from. So if you are from some other place, then you should know about that. You should also know the adjoining areas that is of the state. So Assam has had problems with, say, Mizoram. So what are those problems? Assam has had problems with Arunachal Pradesh. What are those problems? It is not that you should be able to give solutions to those problems, but should be aware of the problems and maybe analyze them and say, what are the possible solutions? This is important, right? Now, each one of you would have taken an optional subject. No, you should not study it again, all over again. No. But if there is a current development on that, so for example, if you've taken political science as a subject, then what is the politics of your area, or if any other further development has taken place, you should know that. So any recent development in the subject that you have taken, you should be fully conversant with that. Then third is the most important part. You should be fully conversant with the current affairs. And there, my suggestion to all of you is read all the editorial articles of the paper that you subscribe. All. One article you read aloud, but otherwise reading, because to me, all these editorial articles help in 2-3 ways. Number one, all these editorial articles provide information for current happenings. And it's not merely current happenings information, it provides a critical analysis of those events. You may agree or disagree, that's a different matter. But it provides a critical analysis, so your knowledge levels will go. Second, all these articles are very well analyzed. So you will develop an analytical mind of coming up with a response to any problem or an issue, where you will be able to analyze. If you do that the 3, 4, 5 months, if you read these articles, you will get into the habit of understanding issues logically and analytically. And of course, then, as I said, as you read more, your knowledge levels will improve about current affairs. So this is how you should prepare for the test. Next one, please. Next slide. Now, let us look at what do you do on the day of the test. Because you've prepared yourself and now the day has arrived. It is natural to be nervous. It is natural. Don't worry about it. Everyone is nervous. I did interview twice. On both times, I had butterflies in my stomach. So once you accept the fact that you are not the only person being nervous, it will comfort you, give you a comfort. Sometimes we get nervous because we feel I am the only person sitting there. No, everyone who's going for the interview is as nervous as you are. So don't worry too much about it. You don't have to worry about worrying, makes you even more worried. So everyone is worried, but don't worry about worrying, because that will enhance your worry. Don't do that. Everyone is on the same boat. Then dress normally. I committed that mistake. First year of my interview was in May. It was hot in Delhi. And I was wearing a suit and a tie because I was told that was the that was the requirement then. And I felt like a fool, because I felt very uncomfortable in that suit. I'd never worn a suit before that, first of all. So I had got a suit stitched specifically for the interview, and I felt very uncomfortable. Not that I don't think it impacted directly, but indirectly I was very conscious of the fact that I was wearing a suit. Next year I was in a full sleeve shirt and a collar shirt, very comfortable, went there, and I could freely talk to them. First year I was very conscious about it. So you should wear usual normal clothes. Don't go in a jeans, or these days I see that's the fashion. I don't know whether they're naturally toned or actually toned jeans. They are a fashion. I've seen them. Don't do all that. Wear normal clothes. And secondly, to the ladies, my suggestion is it's not a fashion show. So don't put on a very, strong perfume. Don't wear a strong perfume. Wear usual clothes. If you are comfortable in sari, wear a sari. If you wear a dress you are comfortable in, that's very, very important. And not very brightly colored, for them to unnecessarily take notice of your clothes when they have to take notice of your personality, not your clothes. So that is one. Second, I think you should listen very attentively. Sometimes, even if you know an answer, the question they're asking, don't interrupt the person who's asking the question until he's completed the question. We have this habit of jumping into it. You know the answer. Like in class, I remember in school, some children used to raise their hands even before the question was complete. You don't have to show off there. In any case, it's your turn to answer. Your time will come when you have to answer. So don't. That is one. Second, don't interrupt. Suppose you are speaking and he interrupts. You should keep quiet. Immediately keep quiet. And when he's speaking, you may thoroughly disagree with him, but don't interrupt. Let him complete the question, and then you take a pause for a second or two, and then answer the question. Finally, personality test is not winning an argument. You're not winning an argument. It's merely presenting your point of view. And you must accept the fact that there could be a difference of opinion. So it's important for you to understand that you are not there to win an argument. You are only presenting your case. And if the person continues to say that, no, this is not correct, sir, you may be right. But from my limited experience, from whatever I have understood, this is my view. And this comes out clearly in the next slide that I come. Go to the next slide. Oh, wow. Finally, you got the full screen. Next slide, please. Now, again, you have to understand very, very clearly. Facts are facts. There can't be two facts. Just one fact. So if they ask you a question on facts, and if you don't know that fact, don't guess. Never ever guess until they ask you to guess. Sometimes they say, no, you take a guess. Then you do that. But don't ever put a wrong fact before the board. If you're not sure, say so. Because they are not looking at answers, they're looking at how do you approach answers. You're not supposed to know everything. I said it earlier. So say, sir, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know. No harm. In the second year, when I got the highest in the country, 25% of the factual questions were such where I said, sir, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But if you're trying to fib, if you're going to discover facts, your personality will be read accordingly, that here is a person who he doesn't have command over facts, yet he tries to come up with something. No. Opinions you can have. You can have a difference of opinion, but opinions also have to be based on certain facts. You can't just guess. But opinions could be different, but facts cannot be different. So you can have an opinion on an issue, but you can't have a different fact. Suppose you are convinced that a particular fact is correct and the person who's asking is wrong. You can politely say, sir, this is what I have understood. This is what I have read. I may be wrong. So it shows your humility. It's not that you're changing your mind. You're showing your humility. Yes, sir, what you may say may be correct, but this is what I understood so far. And of course, opinions can be different. But when you present your opinion, you must present it in a manner that your opinion is not final. No, sir, I think this is the right. No, you can't say that. You'll use the word like, sir, in my opinion, perhaps, probably, meaning thereby that you'll keep an exit door open. It's not that you're changing your view. At your age, even at my age, I still do not know what is the ultimate truth. So I can claim to be that. So you have to be humble about it, sir. This is what I've understood from the limited knowledge that I have on that particular issue. This is my view. He may say, no, this is correct. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was being interviewed during the second year, there was a board member who was reading a book. Many of them get bored. They sit through the day. So he was reading a book. When his turn came, he read out a sentence from the book and asked me, what is your opinion, Mr. Swarup? So I said, sir, I have not read the book, so it may not be correct of me to present a point of view without having the background. Then he said, no, but you still tell me what it is. So I told him what I thought about it. Then he said, no, it is not correct. The book says that it is like this. Sir, that is why I said, sir, I don't know the background. Maybe if I know the background, I'll be able to explain it better. Now, everyone started laughing at him because obviously he was proving my point. That was not my intention. But I was not giving my view unless I knew the facts. And in all cases, I used to use the word, sir, in my opinion. That's my opinion, and you may have a different opinion. This is very, very important. Now, you won't be able to do all this until you practice reading and speaking in the newspaper, because you will fumble. Until you do that, you will not be able to do this. And you must finally understand that in most of the issues, there's no final answer. They're still evolving. There's a Ukraine war going on. So is there a final answer to Ukraine war? There's the Jammu and Kashmir problem. Is there a final answer to that? There are no final answers. Assange Bodoland problem, is there a final answer to that? No. If there were a final answer, we would have found the solution. So don't worry about the finality part. You should always be humble. So this, I think, was the last slide. This is it. Now we can, if there are any questions, I will take those questions.
Yes, sir. So I'll just read out the question, sir.
Yeah.
So the first question is from someone called Dipimani Soikia. Her question is, sir, please tell how to justify the gap period of 5 years with intelligence. So she seems to have had a gap period of 5 years. So how can she justify that?
No, first of all, she would have to know why was it, because I don't know. What was the reason? It could be a family problem. You can say that, sir. I had a family problem. I had to support my family, and hence I had to work for 5 years. Or if he or she was not working, then she'd say, sir, I could not prepare well during first 2-3 years. So I thought I'll prepare well and then appear. It depends on the background of that individual. And that is why when we'll have those offline one-to-one session, I'd like to understand the individual before suggesting an answer. There can't be a general answer to 5-year gap. It will have to be specific to that individual. So friends, I have so far spoken about general issues. Now it will have to be brought to specific related to you. And I can't converse with you directly because you are on YouTube and we are here. If we were on Zoom, I would have asked you straight away, what is the background? Why did you miss 5 years? Then I would have answered that question.
So she has replied just now, she had a family problem.
So she can say that, sir, I had a family problem. And everyone has it. No one in the board would say that I never had a family problem. They will appreciate the fact. They will also appreciate the fact that you're honest. You're honestly admitting that there was some issue. They appreciate honesty. They appreciate integrity. They appreciate positivity. These are things that they appreciate. So you can tell them politely, sir, I had some family problems. I had to support my family. And now they are in slightly more comfortable position. So I thought I'd take a plunge. Good answer.
Yeah. So before proceeding to the next question, I would like to request the participants to come up with their questions if they have got any questions. So the second question is from Manoj Kalita. His question is that, sir, in order of job preference, I have selected Urban Development Administration as he has a genuine interest in that particular domain. So please suggest how to answer that which makes genuine answer for the same. So he has selected Urban Development Administration.
Again, this would be specific to an individual. So what you have to understand is your own reason why you selected it. It is understanding your own reason, and then an answer can be formulated. For example, you have yourself said that you have an interest in that area. You have an interest in urban development. So you'll have to explain what is the cause of that interest. Is some relative in urban development? or you studied urban development, or you visited, sir. What caused that interest in urban development? You should be able to answer that. If you are able to answer that, the answer will be complete. People have different interests, but interest has to have a reason. And that reason could be a personal one or a general one. So you have to yourself analyze and see what caused that interest. Was some exposure to urban development created that curiosity which resulted in that interest? It could be that. I don't know what was your background. You would have to tell me why you picked up urban development, and then an answer could be formulated.
Okay. So the next question is, so I have problem in hearing, but I do not use hearing aid. How far do the board members sit from the candidates? Shall I inform them in the beginning to be a little loud?
But you can do that, and my suggestion would be put on a hearing aid. It is not considered to be a handicap. Why can't you put on a hearing aid? Put on a hearing aid. Yeah. But if you are unable to do that for some reason, whatever reason, medical or otherwise, you can tell the board members, sir, I'm slightly hard of hearing. If you could be please louder. That's good enough. They'll be louder.
Sure. So the next question have...
in any case, when you are asked a question and you are unable to hear it properly, you can request for a repeat. You can say, sir, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you properly. Can you repeat the question? You can say that. Politely, you can say that. And they will repeat it.
Yeah. So we have a question from Daisy Das. A question is, so this time, the optional paper has been removed from this time onwards. So do we need to pay much more attention to our honors subjects of graduation or master degree?
No, not at all. Not at all. Don't worry about subject at all. You can easily come out of it if they ask you a question. So don't worry about your papers that you did in bachelor's.
So another question is, I had BSc and MSc in physics. What are the questions they may ask?
Oh, in physics, for example, who's the physical Nobel laureate this year? What did he research on? So you have to look at recent development in physics. Having done your PhD in physics, I don't think anybody's sitting in the board will have greater knowledge than you have. But whether you are aware of the current developments in physics, that's very important. You should be able to be aware of the current developments in physics. So I just came off the cuff of my mind, who's the Nobel Prize winner in physics this year? And what was his research on? You should know. As a physics student, you should know that.
Yeah. So the next question is, I did my graduation in 2004, and after that, I started working in private sector. This is my first attempt in APAC. Will it be a problem for me, sir?
No, it will not be a problem, though. Of course, they will ask you this question, that you've taken so long, 19 years, to decide that you want to appear in this exam. 2004, you started working. But you can say that, sir, there were issues, and I had to earn something. There could be a family issue, and so you joined the private sector. There's no harm in joining private sector, but you should know the job that you're doing. They might ask you, what exactly is the nature of your job? You should be able to explain clearly what is the nature of the job and subsequent questions thereon.
Yeah. The next question is, so I am doing my PhD and I'm in my final year. So should I thoroughly go through my subject?
No, not at all. But you should know what your PhD subject is. You don't have to be thorough about it, because doing PhD, you would in any case know more than the other people. But you should know the subject on which you are doing your research. The question that will be asked of you will be different. That you are doing research and you want to become a civil servant. Why? You should get a good answer for that. So when I meet you in Guwahati, probably I'll give you an answer, but you should think over it. Why do you want to join the civil service after doing research?
So Mohana Chakraborty has a question. So I'm from teaching profession. How to prepare for questions relating to profession background?
Yes. So then depends on what sort of teaching, whether you're teaching in school, you're teaching in college, you're teaching in an engineering college, where you're teaching, that is very important. And hence, they may ask you questions on what you're teaching. They may ask you questions on what are the problems with teaching in India. They may ask you questions on what are problems with education in India. If you are teaching in higher education, they'll ask you about higher education problems in India or in Assam. So all related questions. Again, when I meet you in Guwahati, I will go through your DAF and clearly pinpoint and tell you what sort of questions can be asked.
Yeah. So we have another question from Raj Biswas. So during interview, being clean shaven is mandatory.
No, it's not. But you should not go like a monk. I think it should be trimmed properly. My suggestion to you would be shave. My suggestion is it's not mandatory, though no one will hold it against you. If it's cleanly trimmed, it is fine. But they may comment on your beard. Anything unusual, they may comment, and you should be ready for it. They will say, you are looking very smart in your beard. Or they will say, beard doesn't suit you. Or they will say, you didn't trim your beard today. They may ask you, how about growing a longer beard? You should be able to answer all these questions because you've done something which is not usual. Anything unusual visible, be prepared for a question.
The next question is how to address questions like your strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, you should know your strengths and weaknesses. I mean, as an individual, you should know. You should be able to say, sir, I'm able to read quickly, I'm able to understand quickly, I'm able to speak reasonably well, I'm good at sports, and you could say that I get angry very quickly. I mean, you should be able to analyze yourself.
So the next question is from Nitikesh Gogoi. So with reference to switching to civil service after completing a professional course as career, how to answer the reason?
So this is a question that every large number of you will be concerned with. The engineers, doctors joining civil service. Why do you join civil service? So you start by appreciating what you're doing. You appreciate the profession. You say, sir, through engineering, a lot of service can be done to the society. It is a very fulfilling job. But in my limited understanding of civil services, that the canvas for a civil servant is much broader and the depth of impact is much more. They will say, no, even as an engineer, you can do that. You can agree with them. Yes, sir, I agree with you. But in my limited understanding, as a civil servant, the canvas is much bigger. The impact that you can have on people is much greater. And thereby you can derive a greater sense of satisfaction. Not to say that you can't derive satisfaction out of an engineer, being an engineer and a doctor. Yes, you can. But this provides a larger canvas.
Yeah. So we have another question. Is catching fish and cycling a better option to say as hobby?
If it is said, don't write a hobby until it is a hobby. Be very careful about what you write. Don't write fishing because Mr. Anil Swarup told the other day that's a good hobby. If you don't fish, because they may ask you question about fishing. Where do you go fishing? And they will ask you difference between different types of fish. When did you last fish? You will get caught. Don't say something which is incorrect. Your lie will be caught. They are smart people sitting there. So if you cycling can be an excellent hobby. But it should be your hobby. I will not write cycling because I don't cycle. But if I do cycle, I'll write it as a hobby.
Yeah. Ankuran Deka is asking, so I have left a good paying software developer job and joined a low paying government job for preparation. Does it have a bad impression?
No, it will not. You'll say that you wanted to prepare for the civil service. There I did not find time. Here I am able to find time. So I took the job. But in any case, your salary is not mentioned in your form, is it? So how do you know it is low or high paying? Until you tell them. How will they know it's a low paying job as compared to the previous one? They might ask you, why did you quit the private sector job for government sector job? There it will be tricky. Because if you say that I was not getting time there and time here, they will say, in the government, you don't have any work or what? It's a tricky thing. So you have to be careful about how you structure. See, friends, I probably will be able to give you ideas when we meet on all these issues. My apprehension is you won't be able to express it. For me, key is expression. Ideas will come. And hence it is important, I'm repeating it. The drill that I've suggested with regard to reading the newspaper, and this, you can also see it on a YouTube. There's a study IQ YouTube on improving your communication skills. It's a 6-minute video on YouTube. Take a look at it and follow that to the road.
Yeah. So another candidate is asking, so I am partially colorblind. So I have put APS, that is Assam Police Service, as my last option. Should I give this reason if they ask why I put police service as my last option?
Is color blindness an essential requirement for police service? I don't think so. You don't have to be colorblind to be in police. It's an essential thing. If it is, then of course the answer is very simple. That since I'm colorblind, sir, I won't be selected for police. But if it is not an essential ingredient, then I don't think you can give that as an argument. Because in police, I don't think color blindness will really impact. I am not very conversant with this, whether color blindness prevents you from joining police service.
So Nilakshi Sharma is asking, sir, I have completed my graduation in 2019 in chemistry, and after clearing IIT JAM, did not join master and started preparing for civil services. How to justify this gap?
You say that it was my desire to become a civil servant. I've been trying and not been succeeding. So I thought I'll give it another try.
Yeah. So then we have another question. So sometimes because of some overwhelming questions, I guess my appearance shows the expression of confusion on my face before the panel. How could I overcome this problem?
Practice, practice, and practice. Get into group discussions, which I have suggested. WhatsApp group discussion, do it every day. Every day. It becomes a habit with you to respond to issues, to respond to questions. It will become your second nature. Nothing better than practicing.
We have another question from Priyanka Sahu. So being an introvert, how to be more presentable and communicative?
Again, same as the previous one. Get into groups, start discussion. First, start with friends that you know very well. Try and speak as much as you can. And this is a suggestion to all of you who are listening to me. Personality test is about speaking. So more than reading anything, in the next 2, 3, 4 months, speak as much as you can. Speak with whoever you can, but speak in the language that you've selected. That's very important. But speak as much as you can. It might appear nonsensical to begin with. You have to get into the habit of speaking first and then speaking logically, rationally, and coherently.
Yeah. So now we have another question. So I have not appeared in UPSC. My main focus is on APSC. I want to serve my state, and as a married woman, it will be tough for me to leave my in-laws. How will I portray this point, sir?
No, you don't talk about UPSC. They will not ask you about UPSC. They'll ask you about APSC. And if you are in the state, you have no problem. So in any case, you will not appear for UPSC because you don't want to go out of the state, which is very fair. You have family compulsions and you say, on account of family compulsions, I want to stay in the state. And hence, they won't ask you this question, why didn't you appear in UPSC? I don't think this question will be asked.
So then we have another question. So how to justify police service over other services in the queue of preference?
It's a question of your personal likes in the terms of being engaging with the people. So if you are giving police above the administrative service, the provincial civil service, then you have to have a specific answer on why do you choose police over state administrative service. Usually the options are provincial civil service and the provincial civil police service. But if you reverse it, then you will have to find an answer and explain why do you want to choose. I have a good answer for choosing provincial civil service over PPS, provincial police service. But the other way around, I don't really have an answer. You should know why are you choosing it. And once you tell me, I'll tell you how to articulate it. My preference was very clear. In the first year, I qualified for the Indian Police Service. I switched over to the IAS. I was asked this question, why do you want to switch over to the IAS? I gave a 5-minute answer reply and it was accepted by everyone. So I have a good answer for switching over from police to the administrative service. I don't have a good answer. I can't think of an answer of why should I opt for police service over the administrative service.
Yeah. So we shall very quickly take the last 3 questions. So I'm a tribal girl and I'm working with a self-help group for the women empowerment, and I also have my own NGO through which I teach the kids of my village. Should I mention this?
Absolutely. This will help you, but you should be able to explain exactly what you're doing. This is taken as a very positive attribute. So you must mention this.
Yeah. So the next question. So please tell us about proper body posture and gesture.
Be natural. Don't slouch. Don't sit absolutely erect. Normal. Be normal. Abnormal, appearance in the board, you will not be able to carry through in the half an hour, 20 minutes that you are there. So be normal. Change that normal. Now, how do you change that normal? You change that by practicing. But you can't do it the only time when you go into the board. In the board, you have to be normal. But you can change that normal. What is that normal? Normally, you are unable to express yourself fluently. You have to change that normal. Normally, you slouch and sit, so you practice sitting straight. But you have to practice it for 2-3 months before you go to the board and do it. You can't do it for the first time in the board.
Yeah. So the next question is, if I say I do not know for more than 50% of the questions, will it make a bad impression of me?
So it's not a question of bad impression. It's a question of worse and bad. So if you guess, then it will be a worse impression. It will be worse than bad. So if you don't know, you don't know. It's as simple as that. How can you know if you don't know? What will you say if you don't know? If you start guessing, it's worse. So it's a question of cutting down your damage. Your damage will be much more if you start guessing. And all of you should realize this fact. No one on this earth knows everything about everything. So that will give you a comfort. There's so many things that you won't know. And you've qualified for the interview. If you have, then you have come some distance, you know something. But you can't be supposed to be knowing everything. So even if it's 50%, there's no other option but to say no.
Yeah. So the last two questions. I have a habit of using fillers like in between sentences and sentences involuntarily. So will this be a problem?
It happens with many people. There again, practice next 3-4 months consciously to avoid using. Many people use I mean, many people use these words. Matlab. Many people use these words in between their sentences. It has become a habit over the years. No one has stopped him. Now, when you get into group discussion, people will point out, you're using this word time and again. I know, I mean. Many people use this. And once you are told, you become conscious of it, over a period, it won't happen overnight. Please listen to this very carefully. There is no magic potion with me that after doing this for one day, you'll get it. No, you'll have to do it consistently over the next 3-4 months. Be conscious of the terms or the words that you're using, which are superfluous in nature. If you become conscious, gradually you will be able to wean them away.
Yeah. So the last question. So I am working as a librarian in Navodaya. What questions might be asked in case I have to face interview panel?
Okay, they will ask you about Navodaya Vidyalaya. They will ask you about what's so great about Navodaya Vidyalaya. They might ask you about school education and the problem. They may ask you about libraries and the problems therein. They may ask you about, now that soft systems have come, internet has come, have the libraries become redundant? Should we close down those libraries? What is the relevance? So these type of questions will be asked. Friends, once I am in physical contact with you one-on-one, then probably I should be able to go into the depth of it. These requires more in-depth understanding of you and what you've written for me to suggest answers. What I'm suggesting now are very general answers. So I would suggest CSAP that you may seek requests from those people who want to have this one-on-one interaction. I hope to spend 10 minutes with each one of you, whoever makes that request, on visit to Guwahati. We will go through in advance your detailed application form where you've written your hobbies, etc. And then I'll be able to suggest to you what sort of questions can be asked of you and probably suggest a few answers as well.
It was a wonderful session indeed, sir. I'm sure the students or the ND and the ones who are going to appear for the interview will derive a lot of benefits from this wonderful session. From CSAP, from Civil Services Achievers Point, I once again express a deep sense of gratitude to sir for you were able to squeeze some time out of your busy schedule and share the valuable nuggets of wisdom with all the participants. So I once again thank you. I also thank all the participants that they joined this session, and I'm sure they will derive a lot of benefits out of this session. So on that note, I would like to conclude this session. I deeply thank you once again, sir. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you, sir.
All the best to all of you, and see you again.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you so much.